How did Romanticism revive European folk tales? Imagine a time when stories told around village fires were considered the true voice of a nation. That's what happened during the Romantic movement in Europe. It started in the late 1700s and carried on into the 1800s. It was a reaction against the Enlightenment, which focused on reason and science. Romantic thinkers valued emotion, personal experience, and the beauty of nature. They believed that folk tales held the key to understanding a country's soul. These stories weren't polished or fancy like classical literature. Instead, they were raw, authentic, and passed down orally from generation to generation. Romantic artists and writers saw these tales as a window into a nation's history, values, and imagination. They thought that collecting and sharing folk stories would help preserve a culture's unique identity. The Brothers Grimm in Germany played a big role in this revival. They traveled through the countryside, listening to local storytellers and gathering tales like Cinderella and Snow White. They published these stories in collections called Grimm's Fairy Tales. Their versions kept the language and spirit of the oral tradition alive. They believed these stories reflected the character of the German people and helped build national pride. Other countries followed suit. In England, William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge drew inspiration from folk ballads and songs for their poetry. Their work used simple language and focused on emotion. In France, writers like François-Augustin de Chateaubriand and Madame de Staël promoted studying national history and folklore. They saw these stories as a way to understand the heart of their nations. Romantic artists also looked back to the medieval past. They loved legends, myths, and heroic stories from earlier times. This led to a revival of medieval themes in art, literature, and music. The Gothic revival in architecture is a good example. It aimed to recreate the style of medieval castles and cathedrals, which symbolized national heritage. Reviving folk tales had practical effects too. It helped preserve languages and traditions that might have been lost. It also boosted national pride, as people saw their stories as part of a shared cultural identity. Schools and public events used these tales to teach children about their history and values. So, in the end, Romanticism helped bring folk tales back to life by showing how important they are to understanding a nation's true spirit. Collecting, sharing, and celebrating these stories kept Europe's cultural diversity alive and strengthened the bonds of national identity.